Welcome back, everybody, to the Omniverse Comics Guide podcast. We are your Omniverse Comics Guide guys. I'm Eric. That's my pal Dave. How you
Hi.
doing, pal Dave?
Yes, dude, amazing, thank you, sir. Fantabulous. Are you?
I, I'm quite fine indeed. Thank you,
Oh,
sir.
excellent, sir.
Uh, for I need to get one of those.
Yes, you
Dave's
do.
got his very distinguished pipe for those
I've
that are
got my
listening.
pipe out for those who can't see what that means.
Tobacco pipe, tobacco pipe.
Oh, I'll get that out
Um,
as well.
for all of our usual suspects who are hanging out with us on Twitch, thank you for joining the show. We love you. If this is your first time coming onto the show, welcome. Stick around. We have a good time talking about comics. For everybody who watches the wonderfully edited YouTube videos that Dave puts together with all the graphics and comic covers, and it's just great. Thank you for watching us. Hit the rate and subscribe button, as well as on all your other podcast platforms. We really appreciate the support, reviews, what have you.
Yes, we
But please
do.
visit omniversecomics.guide. That's the home base for everything that we do. We got all our podcasts there, collector item specials, reading orders that Dave puts together so wonderfully. Check it out. It's a comic reader's uh, guide, but like it's a dream for a comic book reader. If you're a collector and you want to know the order of stuff, it's so good. So
And if
check us out. Oh, Dave,
I was,
tell him.
I was trying to say, if there's stuff you want to see, by all means, jump in our Discord, join the chat, and tell us what reading orders you want.
That's right. And Dave actually takes requests and makes those reading orders for you.
Yes.
Who else does that? Who else does that? Nobody else but
Sane
the
people
Omniverse
don't do
comic
it.
guy. Right? Exactly. All right. Dave, anything in
Hello.
the mailbox today or
Yes.
special? Really?
I need
Tell
to
me.
sort out my TV license and my insurance for the house, my contents. So yeah,
I
that
love
was what was in the Omniverse mailbag today.
it. What what have you bought anything? Have you been reading?
Yeah, no new pickups, but the stuff I'm reading I can't discuss because we'll be bringing them up in our our new top 10 episode next week.
Yeah, I this weekend, not that it's heavy reading necessarily because it's more modern day stuff. Like you can get through these books pretty quick, but I think I read like six
Yeah,
over the weekend. Six, yeah. So I
six
did some pretty
books.
deep six books, yeah.
Well, I need to do that.
But but it was rereads, things I had read before.
Uh-huh.
And you realize like, man, the fun part of what we do is to refresh our memories
Yeah.
of stuff that we know I liked it, and then I read it and I'm like, man, I don't remember this scene. This
Yeah.
is really cool. So
Yeah.
many times I'm like, man, when did this happen? This is what the series was about.
There was
It's
one that
happening with
I've
the
read. I
yeah.
can't remember it being as messed up as it is. It's kind of like, how did they get away with this?
And then there's stuff like that too, right?
Yeah.
Uh, So yeah, I look forward to that episode because I actually have more than enough to pick from.
Cool.
And since everybody's talking about getting some head, figured I'm gonna get mine. Petrol head. Work with me,
Your
mom. It's a
mum's
joke.
watching.
It's okay. We're all grown ups. Yes.
Yes, we
Came in
are. Well,
yesterday.
no, we're not.
I saw
Oh, have you read it yet? This came in yesterday, so you
no,
haven't read it.
just came yesterday. I got a few things yesterday. I'm not gonna show them all because it could give away things down the line.
Okay.
But one of them was Astro City Book 4.
Oh,
Because I have the
man.
first three volumes. I haven't read them yet, but I don't want them to go out of print and then kick myself.
Hmm.
And I know that the Omni's coming out, but I've
Hmm.
committed to
It's
the
disappeared.
Metro book.
The
Whatever.
the big one's disappeared, so I've sold my trade paperbacks and there's no sign of Astro
No.
City. No. So you did the right thing.
Well, I haven't. I was a little bit slacking on keeping up to them. Like I've kind of, you know how these things are, where suddenly it's not available anymore. So there's
Yeah.
volume 5, and I'm not sure if that's the last one. If it is, I'll get it. But if everything now is just going to be supplementary material, like bonus stuff, I just want the main. I like oftentimes having just the main thing.
I think you get proper story. Like I don't know a huge amount about Astro City, but yeah, I think
Me
you're
neither.
pretty safe because I don't think they tend to produce just bits. Even if they do a mini, it's got depth apparently.
Yeah. That's what I hear. I've only heard good things from people who are longtime readers of the series. Like
Same,
they're like,
yeah.
yeah, like this is worthwhile, good quality comics. So okay. Well, we're talking about our most wanted omnibus from Marvel this week.
We are. Ooh.
We do one of these a year, and
Yes.
I like checking to see what's been announced or what's coming out, still not coming out. Our you gave me a list of what we listed last time,
Hmm.
and I was wondering how much of it I would repeat. And I'm kind of surprised that I didn't list any of those on my new list at all. I came up with 14, Dave. So excited.
Jeez.
But
No
you did too,
pressure.
right?
Well, yeah, I came up with 15 in the end.
Okay.
So I'm only one ahead. I might share one.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to begin with one that I had mentioned on our Deadpool Wolverine, and that's Old Man Logan from Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino. Like I said, it reads real easy. If you're a peripheral comic book fan or you like Wolverine as a character and you want to try something and you don't want to be bogged down with a ton of history, this gives you a ton of history without having to worry about reading 700 issues. It's its own kind of story that they're telling. It's a cool version of Wolverine, a time displaced. Is it the same multiverse? Is it not? What's happened here? Because the only thing you need to know is that Wolverine in the current Marvel universe is presumed dead.
Yeah.
He's encased in adamantium, and that's it. And the Wolverine from the future has no memory of this reality.
Hmm.
So it's a fun read. It's an intense read. It's a lot of violence. It's Old Man Wolverine.
Is it really serious?
It's on more on the serious side, I would
Yeah.
say, because there's, I guess, the motivation of things is more like that tapping into his instinctive slash samurai in him, but also that like lone survivor,
Yeah.
right? This is still the Wolverine, or sorry, the Logan, I should say, that exists in the Old Man Logan from Mark Millar and Steve McNiven. Mark Miller, sorry.
It's all right.
I always
I'll
do
let you
that.
off.
It's that same. So if you've read that
Well,
book,
it's a slightly different, it's a slightly divergent one. And that's what I was going
that's
to
right.
say. Like, do you think it should include that as well?
I don't think so. And
No?
that's the interesting part because you kind of feel like, well, yeah, I don't know that before you know it, but it kind of works. They do it in a way that I felt didn't even with villains that appear. I haven't read the whole thing yet. I've read up to issue 13 or so.
Mm.
But in modern day comics, like you would imagine this is an easy sell. This has a built-in audience, and I just feel it would be a no-brain seller for a lot of reasons because you're not as affected by everything else happening in the Marvel universe. It's there, it exists, don't get me wrong, but you don't have to read everything. Just read this book and it stands on its own. So I
Right.
feel like it's an easy omnibus. I think it's an easy sell, and there's enough people who would be interested in trying this out, even for a first-time comic reader. It's not extremely daunting.
Okay.
That's my
Cool.
first pick.
Nice. I'm actually really intrigued to read that after you were talking about it last week.
Yeah, I think there's something there. Dave, your first pick for the night. Go ahead.
Okay. My first choice, so what I was going to do, right? What I was going to do tonight was go all 90s. All 90s stuff.
Great idea. I could have done that. Mm.
Yeah, I could have done it. But there were some things on there that I was thinking, yeah, but I really want to talk about that. And I want to talk about it now. Well, there
Yeah,
is
yeah,
no
yeah.
omnibus. Is it inevitable? Oh, I don't know. It's really hard to say what's inevitable at this point. So my first one is a 90s book. It's
Yes.
Warlock and the Infinity Watch Omnibus. Now, it would probably be
Nice.
2 volumes, I reckon. So it would include Warlock and the Infinity Watch 1 to 42, Warlock Chronicles 1 to 8, and then there's a whole load of extra stuff to include. Like, because there's a point where it goes into the Blood and Thunder crossover with Thor and Silver Surfer. So there's those issues to tie in as well. I've got the numbers listed, but I might whack them on screen.
The Infinity the what's the Infinity
Well,
War.
that's the thing. I was thinking because like there's Silver Surfer Warlock Resurrection, there's Silver Surfer Homecoming graphic novel that Moondragon plays a bit of a key role in, and 2 issues of Cosmic Powers Unlimited. So issue 1 ties in fairly closely, and issue 4 is an aftermath to Warlock and the Infinity Watch. So the only
I
thing I was
have those
thinking
two
was,
trades.
oh yeah, me too, me too.
I want to read them, but I feel like they're gonna be
I
weird
think,
comics.
I think Volume 2 is not going to be great. But then I was looking at it, going like, who even wrote that? And it was John Arcudi, who I love on Rumble, and he does BPRD as well, which I haven't read yet.
Mm.
So I'm going to be open minded and just go for it. But
Right?
I was distracted reading other stuff. But yeah, I don't know if it makes sense to include Infinity War and Infinity Crusade in this. It kind of does. But will people already have it? They're already kind of double dipping because those tie-in issues are also in those separate omnis.
Mm.
So I don't know. I mean, I'd be quite happy if they did. It makes sense for the people that don't
Right.
have them.
Right.
Meh. But yeah, I love that run, like the initial Jim Starlin run, and I think he basically left the book because I don't think he could do what he wanted to do, and he just went, bollocks, and left. So it does get a little weird towards the end. The art's a little weird towards the end. And by the actual end of the series, the revelations aren't Stalin's revelations. And it's hard to know what his original plans were going to be. Because there's a point in it
Mm.
where they meet characters who tell them, like Eternity mentions stuff that's going to happen. Which
Mm.
I love it when they do that in a series. They let you know all these little clues about, and then you're gonna face your ultimate good side, and then this is going to happen, and this
Mm.
person will try and steal your soul, and this thing will happen, and that person's here to kill you, and you go like, oh, which one, which character is it? And it's just, it sucks you in, so it feels like it's
Yeah.
planned out, and that's what they do in this. But plans changed because Stalin left the book. But yeah, that's my number one choice. Well, my first choice for tonight, Warlock and the Infinity Watch. I do love this series. So it spins out of Infinity
Great
Gauntlet.
pick.
It starts with Adam Warlock with the Infinity Gauntlet, and then he dishes it out to his closest friends: Gamora, Drax the Destroyer, Pip the Troll, Moondragon, and a secret sixth member of the Infinity Watch. And they're all separate, and then they have to come together as a team. And you're trying to figure out who the sixth member is, even though you know who it is. You know who it is. But he does kind of go, why did I do this? Like, he had ultimate power, ultimate knowledge, ultimate everything. And he doesn't know why he gave them to these people. It makes no sense.
Happy that I have the trades at least, because it was one of those things where you never knew if you would see it collected again. Right? That's the no omnibus aspect of it,
Yeah,
because this would be I feel a niche market.
it would be. There's a good few things they've released now that feel that way. And the prime example I give is Knights of Pendragon. If they could do Knights of Pendragon, they could do anything. But will
Yeah.
they?
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna. Can I come to the '90s with you
Come to the
and pick
90s.
something?
Come and join me in the 90s, dude. The,
Let's do it.
the colours of
Hold on.
Dayglow.
Let's do it. Um, I'm gonna go. I'm surprised I didn't list this last time. I know I've listed it somewhere, but I'm gonna say I want the full omnibus, and that is Mark Gruenwald, Quasar, issues 1 to 60. Put it in a hardcover. Let's go already.
A
Come on.
whole lot.
The whole. If you got to do two omnis, whatever it is, let's do it. Give Mark Gruenwald his
Yeah.
due. You know what? Again, it's very much of the time, but I like the character, and I've read everything up to issue 25.
Mm-hmm.
The
Cosmos and Collision.
Cosmos and Collision. Greg Capullo comes onto the book.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that ridiculous cosmic, psychedelic. He's got a planet or a universe in his closet. Check out Quasar if you're into
His
the
boss is a
crazy.
tree with a face.
It's great. It's so much fun. And again, there's a lot of things that were normal at that decade that you sometimes would be like, you can't do that with your secretary now. Like what's his name?
Wendell
Wendell what?
Bourne. I
Like
loved this stuff, man. I loved it.
it's a ton of it reminds me
Was
of
it
when I
Carnage?
fell in love with comics.
Yeah.
It's just so far-fetched. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous, but it like weird random stuff, but it was for the kids of that era would have been all into it because it was of its time, right? So he just kind of does these little things where he makes things very silly,
Hmm.
but then brings it around where there's like, oh, That's really cool.
But it's also based in some level of science, not like 100%, obviously. But he would do a thing at the end of each of the letters page, each issue of Quasar, where he'd tell you something about quantum mechanics. You're like,
Yeah.
damn, I'm learning by accident.
Yeah, it's true. Like there was a lot of stuff where you're realizing like isn't that a thing now? Like don't they actually refer to this in a more legitimate way? As when we were reading this, it just seemed like science fiction, woo, like whatever. So anyways, I got a soft spot for Mark Grunwald. I talked about him ad nauseum when we did our maxi series on the Squadron Supreme, how much I had fun reading that. And the Quasar stuff was a ton of fun. I felt like he really enjoyed writing that character.
Oh, he absolutely did. Yeah, you can tell. It
And
shows. His love of the Marvel Universe is just so apparent. And he loves to pull those really random characters in places. And that knowledge is there, but it still logically fits in with the story. So he'll throw you something in, you'll go, I totally forgot that character existed. But this makes perfect sense.
and it's so much fun. That's the thing, right? At the end of the day, his his books were a lot of fun. And
Yeah,
I maybe because I read it on vacation that I associate it with like I just love reading that book. But yeah, Quasar 1 to 60. Let's get it. Come
that's
on.
beautiful.
I think they could do it.
All right. I'm going to stay in the 90s, although this one might be a bit more controversial. So Omega Bread is very kindly supporting us massively on our choices tonight, on the stuff we're
Nice.
choosing. This is where people may diverge. So, Daredevil by D.G. Chichester. Right. So this isn't an acclaimed era for Daredevil.
I know people who like it.
Well, I've got a real soft spot for this era. So he took over from Ann Nocenti. So it's the very end of Ann Nocenti's run ends a little bit strangely with well, it's kind of a spoiler. Do I ruin it? I'm going to tell you the spoiler's on, so switch off for 5 seconds. He loses his memory and then he has to figure out who he is again. It's very odd. It's a very strange way to end it. So when Chichester jumps on, he kind of maintains that grit. So it's him and Lee Weeks. You get some Punisher in there, you get some Hand in there, bit of Ghost Rider, and then it goes into the 4-part Last Rites storyline, which is a follow-up to Born Again. It's just a big old 4-issue blowout, and then it creates a bit of a power vacuum, spoilers, in that part of the Marvel Universe. The stories after that aren't necessarily the strongest. Some of it gets a bit weird, but when it hits there's a storyline called Fall from Grace. This was at a point when they were really changing up people's powers, costume switch-ups, all this kind of stuff. This was a bit of a weird one because they kind of replaced Matt Murdock with Matt Murdock. That's all I'm going to say about it. But the art on it is very experimental. It was Scott McDaniel. Now, he had quite a different style. It was quite a standard style. He didn't really stand out as an artist until this storyline. And you look at the covers on this run, it's from issue 319 up to 325, and they are incredible. Like his art suddenly looks like it's been inspired by Sin City, and it takes on this whole new vibe, and it's just fantastic. And I loved it. Utterly silly, but I loved it. Plus, there's a whole load of guest appearances. You get Morbius, you get Venom, Silver Sable, maybe someone called Elektra. This was a bit of a controversial period for that reason. Then the follow-up storyline, it's him and Captain America and Gambit. And there's no reason why you couldn't throw the Daredevil Black Armor miniseries, which was a recent kind of Untold Tales series that they did, that Chichester wrote. Throw that in there, Elektra Root of Evil, chuck that in. There is a crossover in there as well called Dead Man's Hands, so you could throw in the Punisher War Journal and Nomad issues that tie into that. Plus, this is the kind of era where you had all those weird random stories in Marvel Comics Presents and Marvel Fanfare, so there's a few to chuck in there as well. So it's full on 90s. It's that time, man. It's just that time of like... It's weird, though, because Daredevil was still somehow kind of under the radar. No
Mm.
pun intended, or is there?
You're not alone in loving the series.
I'm sure there are people that do. Oh, well, Omega Bread's commented as well and said he loved the Fall from Grace arc. This isn't controversial at all. And Elektra in the white outfit turned a young Bread into a man.
Yeah, that'll happen. I'm gonna go with one I'm surprised I didn't think of previously, and I'm surprised they haven't made it. But we often talk about this character as having interesting choices of what they put out there for omnis. And I would like to see David Michelinie, Bob Layton era Iron Man Omnibus. Issues 215 in and around to the 250. And I'm sure that there are annuals and some things that need to be included in between that time. But this is during like the Stark Wars and what else? It was just a good, fun 80s era Jerry curled Tony Stark Iron Man time. And it's got its highlights because David Michelinie, he did I think issues 115 in and about to like the 160s or late 150s years before. So it's kind of cool to see him return to the character in a different decade and see where they go with it. But yeah, I'm surprised that Marvel hasn't invested a little bit more into Iron Man books.
It's
So it's
very
one of those,
strange that they haven't. It is very strange.
maybe they didn't know how to market it because, like you said,
Maybe
there's
the
that
first one
gap
didn't
of issues
sell.
in between, right? A good chunk of issues were Denny O'Neil, right? But whatever the case is, people do like this David Michelinie as the during his time, and
Yeah.
it was a we often bring up that 80s era of Marvel where it was, Cap was in a good place, Thor, Iron Man. Anytime they crossed over into each other's books, you felt connected, but not almost kind of the way Valiant was. They
Uh-huh.
blended each other well, but
Yeah.
you never was overbearing.
And it
It
wasn't
was like, you know
always
what?
just a pally team up.
No, they show up. Hey, I need to talk to you about something I'm going through,
Uh-huh.
and it affected both of their stories
Yeah.
in a way that was meaningful. So I liked this 80s decade, and that particular time of Iron Man was, having read the Stark Wars, I liked it a lot more than I expected to, and I just feel like give it its due. Give it an Omni. Let's go.
Yeah.
Chop
No, it's
chop.
a really good shout. New to the Omniverse, we have the following: Hellboy reading order 1994 to present. So that is Seed of Destruction, the series that introduces Hellboy proper up to the end. Also includes the BPRD stuff, shows how it all fits in. Events and crossovers. We've got Dark Sun, Enemy of the State, which is the Wolverine story we mentioned in our recent Deadpool versus Wolverine episode. A lot of people don't realize it's a crossover. And also House of Brainiac from DC Comics, and it leads into the upcoming Mark Waid event, Absolute Power. Podcast and video, we've got Deadpool versus Wolverine. Oh, just mentioned that one. Yeah, here it is again. Shut up. No. Also, incoming for August 2024, so you can find out what's coming out next month and what's going to drain your pockets. Finally, we've got nothing else.
You were prepped and succinct.
Yeah.
Look at that. Man, these commercial breaks are smooth.
That's how I like it.
All right, let's get back to our countdown. Dave, take it away, dude.
Okay. Numero 30. Bit of a weird one, and I kind of ummed and ahed with this one, right? So it's quite a tricky one to know where to start. So what I wanted to do was Doctor Strange by Roger Stern, but it's
Nice.
quite tricky to do Doctor Strange by Roger Stern because his run is broken very, very heavily. So the second series of Doctor Strange from Marvel, so the first series was like they changed the title of Strange Tales to Doctor Strange, and that became his first series. And then when that ended, he was in Marvel Premiere, I think it was, and then he got his own series again. And it's like it's very bitty, and then there's different different creators on there, and you get Steve Englehart for 20 issues, and then Marv Wolfman for an issue or two. Jim Starlin does it for a bit. So it's like I don't know if no one wanted to write the character or not, but it's very choppy. So Stern is on there from 27 to 30, 32 to 33, 35 to 37, 46 to 62, 65 to 73. And then I think he does another issue. It's 75, I think, as well he does. So it's really choppy. So like, do we just do the Stern run? Or I actually kind of feel like they need to not do it by creator. Because even after that, you've got Peter B. Gillis, who writes issues 74, 76 to 81, and then he writes Strange Tales. And after that, you've got Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme, which has already been collected. Ultimately, I want Doctor Strange from the 70s through the 80s, mid-80s, to be collected up. You've got some amazing creators on this book. I mean, you've got a young Chris Claremont writing some issues as well. You've got 4 issues drawn by Paul Smith. You've got Brett Blevins on the book, and I do have a real soft spot for Brett Blevins. A lot of soft spots tonight, but one for Brett Blevins. I love his style. You've also got Michael Golden on Doctor Strange. And some of it's just covers, but even so, I don't care. Gimme Michael Golden on Doctor Strange. What the hell? So it's an interesting time. There's some incredible stuff in there. It is super weird. So even if they did just like a 2-3 volume thing that takes us from that those Marvel premiere appearances through Doctor Strange Volume 2, through Strange Tales, I'd be super happy with that. But yeah, just prepare for pure weirdness. I think there weren't any real rules. There's a random crossover with Man Thing. There's the storyline where he has to kill all the vampires on the planet. There's, oh my god, if you look up Doctor Strange 55's cover, I dare you not to get a chub on. There's some incredible stuff in here. It's just great. And then there's like the war in the Dark Dimension that he becomes involved in. It's so odd, but it's one of those titles again that no one was really kind of watching, and people don't talk about it. But I'm fascinated by it, and I was always fascinated by it because he's such an odd character. Because like no one wants to be Doctor Strange. A lot of the time when you're reading these comics, like you kind of want to be Spider-Man, you kind of want to be Wolverine. No one wants to be Doctor Strange. It's like he's wearing his washing up gloves and a skirt,
Mhm.
and a pair of jeggings. Like what costume
It's
is
probably the
that?
most fun to be Doctor
It
Strange. Like
probably
Wolverine,
is. Yeah,
Wolverine doesn't seem much fun with like as a kid. It's like yeah, just
yeah.
whatever I wanted. Like I'm not scared of anything, bub. But later on, when you're old, you're like he's just killing all the time.
Isn't he
Like,
bored of that now?
oh man, he's lived so long. At least this guy's got that nice little house in Manhattan,
Yeah, it's a lovely
right?
house. He's got his own manservant. They probably can't do that anymore. But he had his own manservant
Right? There was just he was
and
pretty
an
cool.
apprentice who looked like a giant muscular goat.
I'm saying
You know, it's weird. It's weird stuff, and
it's more
but
fun to
it's
be Doctor
great, and
Strange.
it's so
Yeah.
ambiguous as well because you can pretty much do anything. Here you go, have a bit of Winds of Watum up your ass. Like I don't know what you're saying to me. That did something else 5 issues ago, and now it's doing a different thing. What are the rules? What are the rules, Steve? What are the rules, mate? I don't understand.
Okay. It's very upsetting that they put out a volume one for this
Yeah,
series and they've, for some reason or another, didn't.
is it New
They
Avengers?
reprint it. Yeah. New Avengers, Brian Michael Bendis. Could you please help me list what would be included in this volume? In the sense, because you know it. I know that the first volume takes us to and through Civil War
I think
in
it went
that
up to
first volume.
31.
Something like that. 31,
And then it should
32,
be
somewhere.
32. In Volume 2, it should be 32 up to 64. And then New Avengers finale plus some annuals.
Okay.
But I think the
Where would so
tricky
would that
part,
include Secret Invasion?
yes.
I really,
And
really want.
Siege.
Yeah, I really want that omnibus. However, they got to put it out there, figure it out.
Well,
Because one, it's a great run.
yeah.
You've put out these first 31 issues that were a lot of fun, and you know that there's so much more to come, especially with this mystery spoilers that they put in involving Jessica Drew. Right? There's a big Jessica Drew mystery throughout
Yeah.
this Avengers run.
Yeah. I
I've
love
become
that.
a big fan of Spider-Woman
Yeah, she's cool.
myself, reading a few of the more recent runs that she's had, and I really liked her in this series. She's
Yeah.
a main part of the team, and they just I know that they've put it out there in these complete collections, yada yada yada. Give us the omnibus for volume two. Let's give it its just due. What's the problem here?
My
Tell
understanding
me,
is
Dave.
they're re releasing Volume 1. So if they're
Yes.
re-releasing Volume 1, they should be building up to Volume 2. Now, there's something that I was going to say that, funny enough, Meat Trunks has also mentioned in the comment, which is... Oh, no, yes, it's Meat Trunks. Shouldn't you run New Avengers and Mighty Avengers together at some point? So I kind of feel like New Avengers, the Bendis issues of Mighty Avengers, and Dark Avengers should all be put together. Because you kind of can't read one without the other. Like, the context needs to be there. New Avengers and Dark Avengers are probably the most closely tied titles. And if you do read them together, it pays off so much more. And I think they tend to be just kind of re-releasing like Dark Avengers as a run. But I think we're in an age with Omnis where you can put all those things together and it helps people and it helps new readers and it helps them understand.
I
Like
think so.
if you buy a book, the story is in the book. I'm not having to read a
Right.
bit of a book and jump over to another book and then jump back to this book and then pick a third book. This is an opportunity to help readers out and put it all together. And it's still part of New Avengers. It's almost better if they don't number these books. I still think numbering Omnis is a mistake because when there are numbers, people drop off as it goes. And historically, with selling comics, it's always been the same. First issue is a big seller, the second a bit less, third, no, and it drops off. If you don't
Do you
number
think it
them,
forces people to? Do you think it forces a couple people like us to buy them? Because
sometimes,
like I got X Factor Volume 2 and Volume 3 now that have nothing to do with Volume 1.
I wouldn't have bought Volume 1. I love Peter David, but I wouldn't have bought that book. But I couldn't
And
not
I
have the
and
Volume
I
1.
there you go. And I'm tempted to buy Volume 1 because I have Volume 2 and 3. I don't mind the material included in Volume 1. I see it
But that's
for
the thing. It's like,
quite a low price
don't mind
quite
it.
often,
That's not great.
right? But I own it already in my
No.
other X-Men stuff.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Like I've
Yeah.
read a lot of it through Fatal Attractions and through this omnibus, and like it all gets mishmashed in there. So it's like it might be the trick of, well, the crazy people are gonna buy it.
But the reverse of it is some people won't. In terms of the new Avengers stuff, this is where this kind of lays in together. And I think like you could just have New Avengers, New Avengers. No Volume 1, just New Avengers. And then for Volume 2, you could title it in such a way that it mentions Secret Invasion, or it mentions Mighty Avengers, New and Mighty Avengers Omnibus, or something like
Almost
that.
like they do an epic, the way they do the epics.
Yeah.
Title it.
Yeah. So they can do
I'd
that. Some of them they've
I'd
combined
appreciate
in that.
that.
So, but that's the answer. I don't think making it 1, 2, and 3 is necessarily the answer. I mean, it helps people know what order they go in, but you can always check the back of the book and see which issues are in it.
Yeah, but I think you're really onto something. Marvel hire. Hey, David Gabriel, why don't you hire my friend Dave to map out?
Can't work for Disney.
But to your point, they've put out a lot of omnibus that are X-Men Avengers Onslaught. They
Yeah,
put out, X-Men Mutant
exactly.
Massacre, X-Men Fall of the Mutants omnibus now because they got to the point where it crisscrosses with
Yeah.
other titles, and
And
that's
there's
what
no
they
way
should
around
do.
it.
That's what they should do with the Brian Michael Bendis Avengers.
Meat Trunks was literally saying they could number them by years. They could call it Avengers 2004, 2005, and so on. That's not a bad idea because that it numbers it, but doesn't volume number it, and it also lets people know what order it goes in. But they
Yeah,
need to do more to help readers because I'm still seeing a lot of. I know I was saying just now it's still a niche thing and it's probably older readers. I'm seeing a lot of new readers come to comics through Omnis. On various different platforms. They're going like, this is the start of my comic collection, and they're Omnis, and they've got 5 very disparate random Omnis. And you're going, that's not going to make sense to you without this. And like, why haven't they done more to help? Which is kind of what the Omniverse Comics Guide is supposed to be doing, and why I'm trying to do what I'm doing so that I can kind of steer people towards what they can pick up and what order they go in. But it's tricky, and unless they start combining some of these titles into one story, it's just gonna get too confusing for people.
Is it your number 4?
My number 4. Now, this is what broke my... Well, it isn't what broke my 90s run. That was Doctor Strange. But I'm staying in the 80s with a little bit of 70s. I would like to see Power Man and Iron Fist Omnibus, please, because what the hell? How have we not had Power Man and Iron Fist Omnibus?
Nice pick. Easy one to know where to begin. Was
Yeah.
it like issue 50?
So it's
Power Man?
48 and 49 of Power Man, and then issue 50, yes, is Power Man and Iron Fist. Like, it begins with issue 50.
Easy.
Goes up to 125. There's no annuals, but they do appear in other stuff. So there's Daredevil 178, which is a bit of a crossover. They appear in a 2-part Dazzler story quite prominently, so they could include, and this is where it's quite fun, I think, sometimes to include those other appearances. Marvel Team Up Annuals 3 and 4, Marvel 2 and 1, 94. ROM 23 is a crossover again, and while they've got the opportunity to include ROM, do it now, because they'll lose the license before long. And Secret Wars 2 number 2, which is heavily tied into their ongoing saga. So why haven't we seen that yet? I don't know. There's a lot of stuff we're asking that about, and actually pretty much everything we've mentioned tonight has been, why haven't they done that yet? But it does seem like a massive omission, and it felt like they were building up to it when they did the Power Man, Luke Cage Power Man Omnibus and the Iron Fist Omnibus. But yet there's still no sign of Power Man and Iron Fist, or maybe they didn't sell, or maybe it's whether they sold or not. What people really want is the two of them together. So it will probably, would it be two? But two books, one book. Don't know. It could be a really, really, really chunky one, or it could be two
They go
volumes.
up to issue 125?
Yeah, 50 to 125 plus those two Power Mans is, and then
Two.
potentially a sprinkling of some others.
Yeah, a
So
two volume
it's a
would be
two
good.
volume, yeah.
Easy. Nice and clean two volume. You get a good amount of issues in both, and you get that full era of the two characters that a lot of people like. Issue to issue sort of adventures. Sometimes they're two-parters. You don't get these long 12 issue storylines or and you know what I mean? But
Yeah, Kurt
they're
Busiek is
heroes for
writing some
hire.
of it as well.
Yeah, early Kurt
Like
Busiek
really,
is in
really,
there
really
too. Yeah,
early.
really early. Yeah, so good artists. I like Kerry Gamble. He's
Yeah,
on
me
the
too.
some. I gotta I like his stuff. So him and Joe Duffy are on there. Claremont Byrne, Trevor Von Eden,
Oh, Jim Owsley.
Joe Duffy, Kerry Gamble. We're on
So
this
Christopher
first
Priest.
volume. Yeah, there you go.
I mean, again, just the
Yeah,
covers. Some of the covers are just really, really cool. It's great stuff. It's silly. It's funny. It's different. It's such an oddball series, but that's the appeal. Plus, you get really, really early Sabretooth appearances as well,
it's
randomly.
fun. It's a lot of fun stuff. Okay, my number five. I got one for you. I'm gonna pull one from the '90s
Fair. Yeah.
because you mentioned '90s.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had another one for the '90s, but I'll save it for the next time.
Okay.
So this time around, I'm gonna send a special shout out to one of my favorite creators, J.M. DeMatteis, and I would like the Spectacular Spider-Man with him and Sal Buscema. It is some really, really great Spider-Man stories, lots of heart. I know J.M. DeMatteis has written a lot of Spider-Man in his career, but I feel like this is kind of the run that is close to his heart in the sense of like him being able to, again, writer, creator, doing their thing. Right after I think Jerry Conway was on the book. And I think this is the series that also has the
You're right.
forget the name of it all the time.
I thought you
I was
farted.
going to say Children's Crusade. What did you say?
I thought you farted. It also
No,
has the. Oh,
forget the name now. It's the series that is about vermin
Child
from the
Within?
child within.
Child
Thank
Within.
you.
That's all right.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I've
Thank
never
you.
read it.
It is a great spiritual like sequel to Kraven's Last Hunt in a way because
Mm.
Vermin is a character that is included in that storyline and he really goes into a little bit more depth with that story. So it's one that's very close to his heart. And whenever a creator feels that sort of passion for the work that they did, like they look back at it fondly, you're like, that's a good place to read that writer's, him in his heyday, as you will. But
Yeah.
again, James DeMatteis has a plethora of comic book runs that are worthwhile reading. This is one of them, and it's Spider-Man. They're putting out the Michelini and Bagley, the Michelini
Yeah.
and Larson. They're
Again,
doing
though, I thought they were going to combine them because that's what they've historically done with Omnis. I thought they were going to do just like Spider-Man of the era, and they're not. They've kind of broken it up still. So by the time you hit the
right
Clone Saga, it'll be together. But before then, it's not. I just find that a bit weird. But
a little bit, right? It's almost you get a more better you get a better reading order going through the Epic collections and reading Spider-Man any character that way because they'll include miniseries and
mm,
they'll even throw in a graphic novel or what do they call it one shots of the time.
yeah,
But this is just Spectacular Spider-Man. I think it's like 30 issues or so, give or take. It's a nice. It
sure.
would be a perfectly sized chunk of Spider-Man to read. You get key stories, and of course, it ends with Spectacular Spider-Man 200 is I think where his run ends, and it ends with a big moment, big storyline that is well earned. That's my '90s pick to finish off: Spectacular Spider-Man, J.M. DeMatteis, Sal Buscema.
Nice, nice. Okay, my number five is a character that I really, 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 really just I can't stand him.
All right.
So it's Gambit, but hear me out, right? I'm really, really not a fan of Gambit at all. He's never. I never thought he was cool at any point. Yeah, when he was first introduced, I was kind of going like, nice hair. I didn't really get it, and he kind of bothered me. The whole "bang you dead" thing, and like, nah, forget it. Now, that changed for me. Not so much that I thought he was cool, but I did love reading the 1990s, the late 1990s Gambit series. So we are kind of back in 1999, not for very long. This is Gambit by Fabian Nicieza. It's Gambit 1 to 25. It's just a 25 issue series. There's also an issue half. There aren't really any crossovers. There's a couple of annuals. There's Annual 99 and Annual 2000. There's a random cyber comic, but it's mostly self-contained. The first the first year's worth of stories are almost all drawn by Steve Scrose. I love Steve Scrose. He then went on to work on The Matrix, I think after this or around this time. His art is so cool. It's so cool. It's so kinetic, which is perfect for Gambit. Intending that pun. He fights some really random characters. He also fights the Executioner, who's kind of become a bit more of a bigger character recently because of X-Men 97. He goes up against Sabretooth. There are some tie-ins to the Shattering event, but you don't need to worry about not knowing what that means. There's Daredevil in it. But then he does drop off the book. And there are a couple of guest artist issues. And then a very young, or early in his career, Yannick Paquette jumps on the series. There's a whole thing with the Assassin's Guilds and everything. And then Bullseye ends up in it. Like Bullseye and Gambit in the same series. What? It's great. And it's really overlooked or underappreciated. Take your pick. There's a lot of unders and overs there. Take your pick as to which one you like the most. Yeah, let us know in the comments if it's underappreciated or overcooked or whatever it was I said. Anyways, yeah, so I definitely recommend Gambit by Fabian
Nicieza.
Thank you. Omni, that's my big old number 5 for tonight. And I desperately, desperately want it, even though Gambit's a bell end.
Nice pick.
Thank you.
Like that. That's cool. I feel like there's stuff that why didn't I list that instead? Would that have been more interesting? But we picked the ones
we did.
that
we
we
picked
want.
them. We've picked them. But I did have I had a spare that because I was convinced you were going to take one, and now I'm staring at it, going, "I'm so sorry, I didn't choose you. I feel terrible."
Do you want to say what it was?
No, we'll do it. We'll do it the next time we do one.
All right, sounds good. Well, that was fun. Everybody, thank you for joining us on Twitch. That's with us and chiming in during our episode. As always, we appreciate the intel, the input, the correction if we've made an error. And everyone that's watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit the rate and subscribe button. Thumbs up. Give us one. And of course on Spotify, Apple, iTunes podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast, thank you for tuning in. We really, really appreciate it. And don't forget to visit omniversecomics.guide. Dave, any last words?
Yes. Follow us, subscribe, do stuff like that, all that kind of stuff. If you do want to support the Omniverse, there you can join the website where you get access to all sorts of bonus material. There is a new subscriber exclusive coming this very week, and actually will probably be out by the time this episode goes live.
There you have it, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Omniversecomics.guide. Dave, my friend. See you next time. It's gonna be fun. Come back next week. It's gonna be fun.
It's a good one. It's a beauty.